My name is Candan. I'm CTO and co-founder of NormShield. I have experience on .NET and Python development, over 8 years penetration testing and incident response experience. I have a bunch of certificates on both network and offensive security, defensive security, and secure application development. That's my email address, jandan@normshield.com, and also Candan Bulukbash is my Twitter handler. So it's a quick introduction, and that was the only advertisement that I'm going to show you. So today we're going to talk about a open source project, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, and they have an add-on on top of these. It's Beats. Actually, I was planning to use OSEC for this demo, but I see that these guys launched the endpoints, which is actually a kind of a lightweight host intrusion detection systems. So I decided to use them because they can easily integrate with these ELK trio. So what are these tools and what does it look like? So this is, by the way, slides are coming from Elasticsearch on slide. I didn't prepare that. There are brilliant slides and I decided to use their slides. So these are the three products that, shares the workload. So first of all, at the center of this infrastructure is the Elasticsearch. We will see that it is responsible from indexing data, consuming data, correlating that, maybe not correlating, but at least indexing and providing the data. So it is responsible from data operations. And Logstash is kind of an ETL tool. So it is communicating with other agents like Beats. Let me start with Beats first. Beats is responsible from collecting the logs from endpoints. So for example, if you have a Windows server, FTP server, or network agent, or whatever, if you have something like that, you're using Beats to communicate with them. So for example, file Beats, or ping Beats, or Windows log Beats. So I will show them to you. So you can install that corresponding agent to a server, and then it will collect the logs and send it back to you. So this guy is communicating with either with Elasticsearch or Logstash to, collect all logs to a centralized location. So this can work with either Logstash or Elasticsearch, but we will use Logstash because in an environment you usually don't want your agents to communicate with the Elasticsearch directly because we're talking about thousands of endpoints, right, in a normal enterprise environment. If you are communicating with the heavy loaded server, that creates a lot of work on that. That's why you set up multiple Logstash on a distributed environment maybe and distribute the load to multiple agents and maybe do some filtering on it and maybe do some analysis on these agents to, filter out the logs and maybe the network packages and then send it to Elasticsearch. So that's actually a good transition for that. That's why we're going to communicate these guys with Logstash. Then Logstash is going to communicate with Elasticsearch. Logstash can collect the log by itself by reading from a file, but primarily it is responsible from forwarding logs from Beats to Elasticsearch and do some filtering and analysis on those logs, and I will show you that. So these guys are responsible for collecting logs. This is responsible for keeping the logs and providing the data, and Kibana is the interface. So it is not doing other than the representation of the existing data. So that's why if you have only Kibana itself, it's not going to show you anything. That's only a mirror. You have to have the actual image in order to see something on the mirror. And in order to show something, either you have to use the API of Elasticsearch to dump all the logs to Elasticsearch, or use Logstash or Kibana, Logstash or Beats to collect the logs. So this infrastructure is free and open source, and we're going to primarily focus on those things. But of course, these guys need to make some money. That's why they have an Elastic Cloud. It's actually a managed thing. If you would like to dump your own logs to a cloud, welcome to Elastic Cloud. Doesn't make any sense to me, by the way. And they have another idea that, hey, nobody is dumping their logs to a cloud. Let's find another thing. So they come up with an idea that, hey, we can add some security, some alerting, some monitoring things, and reporting capabilities on top of this, and also use the machine learning buzzwords on this add-on, so we can sell that thing. They are selling this thing, okay? They're selling this thing, but these are all open source and free. So where can we get that, and how is the deep infrastructure look like? And we're going to walk through that. So first of all, we will get the Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is available for Windows, Mac, Linux, and all those things at this URL. Actually, if you visit elasticsearch.co, let's see. So it's pretty straightforward, by the way. So all you need to do is, when you are here, get Elasticsearch, or maybe you can watch the video about on products. Okay, so they're also visualizing the things like Elasticsearch. You can download from here. That's pretty straightforward. But in order to show you a kind of an idea of how we can download it, you can either download a zip package or RBM or DB package. If you're on Linux box, I prefer to use either one of these. Only if you're on Windows, use either zip or Messiah. And if you're on Mac OS, you can use either zip or tar file. And those guys includes the necessary executables to run on either Linux or Mac OS or Windows. So that zip package is actually, I downloaded, and it includes the necessary stuff. So let me actually show that to you guys very quick. So that is the zip file that I've downloaded, and it comes with the all necessary things. And under bin folder, as you can see, that there is a binary here. It's a Linux binary, and also an executable related with the service manager and also the service itself. So that's actually includes both of them. That's why you don't have to worry about which one I should download. Just download a zip file, and then you can use that. Or if you are going to deploy in an environment, you should follow the installation instructions in a production environment. But today, just download the zip file, and then you can run it. It's going to be pretty straightforward. So that is Elasticsearch, how you can get it. And the second stage is you can download the Kibana. In the same way, just click on the Kibana link, download it. When you download it, it's going to be a zip file again. If you run it bin Kibana, it's going to run. That's pretty easy, and I'm going to show you how you can run that. And by the way, these information are available at this link if you would like to get them step by step. And then the third one is we're going to download the Logstash. Again, it's pretty straightforward. When you click on Logstash link on Elasticsearch site, you will see that there is a download link available. Again, you can download the zip file, but this time you need to modify the configuration file. Logstash cannot run without the configuration file. It is required, and you have to configure that in a way. All of them are here, and I just added one thing to this list, that is install beats. This is required in order to collect the logs, because nobody wants to use a sample log all the way in entire life. We need real agents to collect the log from the endpoint. So we are actually going to do something like this. So these are really handy-dandy tools, and we will show you how we can collect the logs from IES, from Apache server, from network packages like NetFlow, and also we will get some feeds from Twitter. That's interesting, but Twitter is also an important thing. I mean, if you have some keywords, if you would like to follow what's going on Twitter, it has the capability, and that's actually one feature that I really like it. And then we're going to run, and the bin Elasticsearch, bin Kibana, those are going to be our friend, and then we will visit the interface. That's going to be the easiest way to run this thing. So before running that, I would like to show you the path of an event during this journey. So that we will going to talk about these components, and you need to know that what's going on, what's that. So beats are responsible from end units, right? So it can read from log files. If you run it, it can look at the logs and can check where it was last time, and then it read the rest of the logs and send it to either, as you can see, Elasticsearch or Logstash. So this guy can also read some metrics. It doesn't have to be the log file, by the way. It can read data. It doesn't matter. By the way, ELK is designed for SOC analysts, but it is now an analytic tool. So it doesn't have to be a security analytic tool. It can be worked with a lot of things. So that's why when you read the documentation, you will see a lot of marketing things, business analytic things, other than the cybersecurity. So, but it's okay. We still accept that as a cybersecurity tool, and it can read the wire data, and even you can create your own beat tool to read that. And I will show that there are approximately 200 community beats that you can read from a lot of resources. So, for example, if you would like to read Amazon S3 bucket, or maybe from any of these, or for example from Kafka or Redis, so they're available. And then the Logstash, we're going to do some, so as you can see, there are some inputs here, some outputs here, Logstash is in the middle. So Logstash has an architecture, works with some inputs, doing some filtering, and sending some outputs. So that's going to be our guide. And as you can see, Elasticsearch is holding all the data, so indexing them and keeping them, and the Kibana is the interface for these packages, right? So we will kick let's assume that this is our, let's say, client. Client send the log to Beatzone, send it to Logstash. Logstash is going to send it to Elasticsearch, and we will see it on Kibana. That's the idea. So if you are happy with the products and where they are fitting on the infrastructure, we will start to analyze these things, and also follow the packages, read some packages, and set up our environment. Let me see what else do we have here. Okay, so that's a simpler way. So this is the infrastructure that we're going to use today. Plus, at the end, there will be Kibana. And okay, so why we choose a Logstash, as I already mentioned, it can read a lot of things. It doesn't have to be a log file. It can read from AWS, from even web applications, from even message queues, and all those things. And Logstash can distribute the output to multiple outputs, right? It doesn't have to be Elasticsearch, or even you can say that, hey, I want to create an alarm whenever I see some kind of log. Or maybe I would like to send it to Elasticsearch, but at the same time, I would like to send it to my S3 bucket, or maybe a cheap storage, in order to keep the raw log files, right? So that's the thing that you can do. So multiple input, multiple outputs, perfectly fine Logstash. That's the thing that I like with Logstash. And okay, so Logstash, a little bit deep dive, and we will start with Logstash because as I said, there are approximately 200 plugins. That some of these are actually coming from with plugins. So for example, Salesforce, it's not built in with Logstash. Instead, you have to install the plugin on top of that. But Twitter is built in, and file reading, wiretap reading, or package reading, all of them are built in. You don't have to set up for that. So for a normal enterprise, actually, it's pretty built in. You don't have to install anything for that. And it is extendable. It has API. All of them actually. Kibana, Elasticsearch, Logstash, they have open API. You can use for any purposes. Actually, behind NormShield Cloud, we have Elasticsearch to analyze a lot of data. For example, we have over, I don't know, maybe 10 terabytes of cyber events database, which includes over 10 billion records. We're using Elasticsearch to manipulate all amount of that data. So it's perfectly fine for big environments, for distributed environment, for horizontal scaling. And it has API, and we're using their API to provide some services to our customers. Okay, yeah. So at this point, I will stop and I will go back to the installation. So first of all, when we download the Elasticsearch, as you can see, it has a bin folder, and there is an Elasticsearch binary file. And when you download the Kibana, again under bin folder, there is a Kibana here. And when you download Logstash, under bin folder, it has Logstash. It is pretty straightforward, right? So download the zip, unzip, and then you will see this tree file. So how can I run that? So basically, let me actually stop this, and then I will restart it. Let me stop this too. It was running behind the scene. I would like to collect some logs.
Seems like a small for threat intelligence analysis.
Yeah, we're gonna do the threat intelligence analysis, and we'll see that. So in order to run Elasticsearch, that's a pretty complex command to run. All you need to do is bin Elasticsearch. So it will take approximately 30 seconds to boot up. what it's doing that it's reading the index files, and if you have a distributed environment like a multiple Elasticsearch, multiple instance, multiple nodes, it is communicating and trying to find out which one is the master. And also if you have multiple shards to distribute the data for multiple disk systems, it is also looking for that and then coming up and saying that, hey, I already loaded all the plugins, I see no problem here, and now you are in good shape. You can run me on a local host port, which is by default 9200. So this is the port that is running on 9200. By the way, when you set up the Elasticsearch, it is by default binding to localhost, not to the all interfaces. It's actually a security reason because when you set up Elasticsearch, it has no password, absolutely no password. Okay, so that's why if you would like to publish this to internet, you need to check out for the security things first, and then you should come up with the security infrastructure, and then you should bind it to all IP addresses. It is editable in the configuration file, but for this argument, for this system, 9200 localhost is fine. When you visit that, so let me move this thing to here because it's too far away. And I don't need to. Okay, so if I visit 9200, it is saying that, hey, my name is this thing, and I am running on version 5.6.2, and you know what to do. Okay, that's all. So this is the API, and actually you can do the more things by using the URLs, but I'm not going to waste my time for the API interface. Instead, we're going to use Kibana for that. So Kibana is, again, pretty straightforward. When you download it, you will see that under bin folder. All you need to do is run bin Kibana. Again, an easy command. It is going to analyze some of the plugins. If you have XPack or any other plugins, it is going to load them, and it's going to try to communicate with the Elasticsearch, whether it is up and running, and I can communicate with that. And when it is, all of them are okay, it is going to be available at port 5601. So it is going to be right here. Let me actually pull that up. Oops. Let's wait for that because it's still not available, I think. Okay, so this is Kibana. When you open that, you will probably see nothing, and it's going to be on management thing, and it will ask you that, hey, you don't have any index here, you have to create something first. Okay, that's going to be the first screen that you're going to see, but it's easy to solve. It's saying that I don't have any data, man. How come you expect me to run? You have to load some data on Elasticsearch so I can provide that data. And we are at that point. We would like to add some data to Elasticsearch by using Logstash. So in the Logstash, first of all, I would like to show you a configuration file when you just started to use Logstash. So this is a basic, very basic Logstash configuration. Let me actually get rid of this thing, and actually let's keep that. So it has some inputs, it has some outputs, and it has some filter here. Okay. And what we need to do is actually, we need to identify which input we are going to use and which output we are going to use. And I would like to keep that for this purpose. I would like to keep it a little bit simpler than this. So this is actually a commanding thing. And I will use, what is it? Standard input. Oh, actually, I can run it from without any configuration file. Let me use that only from the. Okay. So let's do this first. In order to run Logstash, I will run this first. It's actually taking a config file from standard input. If you say that, something like this, read the inputs from standard input, which is the keyboard, and output is going to be the standard output. So it's going to read something and it's going to write output something. And of course, it's going to show whatever I do is going to represent to me. But it's the easiest way to start with the Logstash, and I would like to show you if it can run. Something is killing my CPU. Let me see. Yes, this is side effect of Elasticsearch. It's written in Java. It is killing your CPU sometimes if it has some jobs to do. By the way, I loaded 2 million logs to the system already. That's also a little bit too much for this small ecosystem. So we have the system. When I write Jandan, I get the output Jandan. When I say hello, I get hello on the output. So it is actually getting some input and putting some output. Of course, we need to modify this thing to work in an enterprise environment. So I will stop this and I will say that, hey, I want you to work with some test configuration. So I would like to use the first configuration that I've created, that you see in here. So this is the first configuration. It is going to read from some inputs from port 5043, and the output is going to be, again, the standard output. Actually, it's going to use the Ruby debugger as an output. So if I start with that, and actually instead of starting, I will say that test and exit. So this is an important comment, because you cannot make sure that your configuration is perfectly fine so you can deploy it in a production environment. You always need to test it. And that's my favorite comment. That's why I always test my configuration first. And if I have any problem, I discover that and I will fix that. And then finally, I come up with the final solution. And then I will run I will show you exactly what's look like on the production environment. But for this moment, it is going to look for the configuration and it's going to read some inputs. Where's that? Yeah. It is going to listen port 5043, and then the output is going to be Ruby debugger. And if everything is fine, it is going to return back and say that, hey, your configuration seems fine, and you can deploy it in a production environment. So we do a lot of configuration change during the Logstash, and you don't want to shut down your Logstash in order to do some configuration change and then start back again. It's not a good idea usually. Although beats, the end units can keep some log on its memory, and then whenever the Logstash is available, it tries to send it back to you. But usually it's not a good idea to keep the Logstash down for a long time. That's why we usually prefer to start it with reload automatic command. What is that doing? It is actually reading a log configuration, and then it is whenever you made a change, it is reloading the configuration automatically. So let me actually copy this log configuration to my original one, and during the demo we will use that. So this is actually the ultimate configuration file we are going to use this. By the way, it's simple. Again, it's a simple configuration file. Let me save this thing and then let me start it. So basically there is no output here. Again, the standard output is going to be the command line interface, and we will do the integration with Elasticsearch. It's one line code. It's not that too complicated, but we need to understand the beats first. What is that beat and how it is working, how we can get the logs from the end units, and then try to figure out what's going on under the underlying logic. Then when we complete the step, getting the logs from beats to Logstash, we will send the outputs to Elasticsearch when we are make sure that it is available. Okay, so as you can see, it is now available. It is running on port 5043. So now beats. So somebody is listening here. I need to send some logs to my Logstash, and it's going to display in my standard output. So let's jump to the beats. Okay, here are the beats. When you click on that, there are a bunch of beats available. So primarily, usually you deal with these three. This one, obviously, it's reading the file and sending the output to the Logstash or maybe Elasticsearch, whatever you want. So that's good for text-based files. If you would like to read the network packages, you can use PackageBeat. By the way, it's not an equivalent to Wireshark, read all the things and send them all. It's not that kind of thing. It is reading and sending some of the protocols that has the parser. But writing a parser, it's not that complicated, and a lot of parts are available for this one. But we're going to show some of the basics. We'll note, of course, Windows and Microsoft is an exceptional thing always. Since its database is something really interesting, that's why it has a dedicated WinLog Git. So it is doing nothing but reading Windows logs and sending to Logstash. I wish Windows can keep the log files in a file, so I can use FileBit only to read my own logs. But if you are talking about a Windows machine, you have to run FileBit to read the DHCP DNS logs. You have to use WinLogBit to read the event logs. That's the side effect, unfortunately, guys. So FileBit, when you download it, it's pretty straightforward. Again, download, and it's a zip file. It is available for every platform, obviously, and I just downloaded for my Mac. So it is something like this. When you have that, it has a binary available for that, and it needs some configuration file. Obviously, on open source community, everything is configuration. Sorry, guys. I hate configuration files, by the way, but that's the thing. So, but it's at least it's easy to edit. It's not that complicated, although it's a long thing. But as you can see, there are only a few things that you can uncomment and see, right? So first of all, the input. You're telling that Beat where you are going to get the log files, and it's the type of log, and path is going to be my local directory, and you can put the either Windows directory or maybe Linux-like directory. It's pretty straightforward, right? It's not that complicated. And I will use my local directory because I have sample logs in this directory. And what's the output? That is input, and the output is all right here. So as you can see, there's an Elasticsearch here. I commanded that it's not going to send it to Elasticsearch. By default, it's trying to send it to Elasticsearch, but I command that, uncomment here. We know that our log state is running on 5043, right? That's again pretty straightforward. Post this. As you can see, this is an array. You can put more. The file bits can send to multiple Logstash, so it is again pretty easy. So basic configuration, not that complicated. Let's run that and let's see our logs. So, yep.
So, where's the parser for the file beat?
It's not here. So that's the magic part. Remember, file beats are lightweight. They're running on a client side. Remember, and you don't want to consume a lot of resource on client side. That's why these are just the dummy clients that's reading a file and sending to Logstash. So Logstash is responsible for parsing the file, and we're going to be in that point in a minute. That's a really good question.
Is communication secured or just?
By default, it's not. If you would like to make it secure, you can use the certificate authentication. Then it's going to encrypt the log files. But by default, it's plain text. And by default, there is no authentication. So the default environment of Logstash, Elasticsearch, Kibana environment is pretty insecure. Don't publish it to internet. And as you can see on Shodan, if you search for Elasticsearch, you will see a lot of insecure systems that's available from public. You can just see a lot of logs in somebody else's system. Let's not do that. Let's use the safe way. So I would like to use this log file, which includes approximately 100 logs, 100 lines of logs. As you can see, this is an Apache log, and pretty similar to what we already seen. And our file beat agent is going to run with some commands, something like this. So FileBit is going to get some configuration from this YAML file that we have modified, and also the job is going to be the publish. Okay, it can simulate or it can do something else. By the way, this is from the installation setup. It's one-line code that you need to either memorize or maybe copy it in somewhere else. And when you run that, I will like to look at the Logstash environment. So remember, that's going to read my log file and send it to here. And as you can see, I can see that my log files, my log results are available here. And since this is the standard output, Logstash is writing it to the standard output. So we completed one thing. One agent is running on my machine, either Windows or Linux or Mac or whatever, and it's reading log files from some system and sending it to my Logstash. And Logstash see that, okay, I get the logs. That's a good thing. But here's the missing parts. One, the log itself is not parsed. It says message, and this one is all one line of thing. And I want them to be parsed, right? Because if you have something like that, you cannot analyze for the source IP address or maybe the user agent and all those things. I need those kind of things. So we need definitely the parser. That's why this filter section is command out. Where's that? This filter stands for that. We're going to come back to that point. Obviously, that's a need because if you publish this to Elasticsearch, when you do the search for this IP address as a source IP, you will see nothing. Because this is a part of a string right now. So we cannot use that as a threat for threat hunting. That's why we need to parse that. Luckily, that's an easy thing to do. And I would like to show you in the second configuration file. And it is under my Logstash. Right here. So filters, you will see that a lot of documentation available for that, but the easiest way to use the grok is actually equivalent to grep. It is running with some regular expression, similar syntax. If I paste this and delete that, okay. By the way, indentation is important, punctuation is important. If you are going to do this, you have to double check that configuration. Writing a configuration file is usually a lot difficult than seen. So this is actually pretty straightforward grok because I know what is an Apache log file look like because it's standard almost 10 years. It's not changing over the time. That's why we can use the combined Apache log as one parser. It is going to do that for me. For example, if I save this, let's look at the Logstash output. You will see something different here. See that? Since I save and remember we run that reload automatically, it is reloading my configuration automatically. Now it is ready to parse that log file. Okay? I will stop it, stop this thing, and then run again. And let's look at the Logstash output now. There we go. So we have the fields that I need, right? So client IP, bytes, response code, timestamp, referrer, and all those things, right? So that's exactly what I want because I can't use a regular string to analyze the attack patterns, right? That's the most important thing that you need to do in an ELK environment or even in Splunk. In Splunk, if you import a log file, it is doing exactly the same thing. It is accepting your message as a one-line string, and you cannot do any analytics on that. So in both cases, you have to have a parser to parse these log files. So that's good. And I would like to add something here too. So that's actually good to have. So that is the third configuration file. I just added a small add-on here. So this is a Geo IP, and it is going to read the client IP section. Remember when we analyzed it, this thing, we have a section that's called client IP, and it is IP address. And I would like to know where this IP address sits for. So that's actually the beauty of Logstash filters. And remember this slide. Let me come back again. So the filters are not only responsible for parsing logs, but also it is responsible for data enrichment. So you can use the location analysis. You can do you can drop some logs. You can enrich something to the log and maybe tag it. So there are a lot of things to do, but I would like to show you a kind of a small example on that. So we would like to enrich our data by adding the Geo IP. When I save it, my Logstash instead will automatically reload the configuration file, and I assume that it is corrected and it doesn't have any problem. Now I will send my logs again. Okay. Let's go back to here. Okay. Now, as you can see here, we have some latitude, longitude, Great Britain, London, whatever that. So we have pretty good information that's not available in the log file itself, but we can do some analytics on that. Why we're doing that? You will need that in a large enterprise because when you're troubleshooting something, you need every single piece of information because you're going to swim in data, okay? You have to have some good information to make some decision, to eliminate some false positive, even false negative, and all those things. In order to make some decision, we usually prefer something like this. So that is the enrichment. Now it is time for the communicate with Elasticsearch. It's again pretty easy. All we need to do is add host to Elasticsearch, and actually the output is going to be something like this. And as you remember, our output was only the standard output, and you can have multiple outputs side by side, no problem. But we don't need that because we're going to put a lot of logs. I don't want my log to get busy. By the way, if you have any username and password, you can add them. Since we have the basic configuration, we don't have any username and password. And this is going to push the logs to the server. Okay, let me save. Now I have done the integration of three things. Beats are communicating with Logstash. Logstash is communicating with Elasticsearch. And I remember also we did the integration with Elasticsearch with Kibana. So we have all pieces together, right? So let me go to Kibana screen here though, and in the main dashboard, we don't see anything. And I'm looking at the last 15 minutes, and I would like to make it auto refresh in 5 seconds. So we don't see anything here. I would like to stop my log thing. Now I would like to run again. So this time I'm not going to look at to the Logstash screen. Instead, I'm going to look at to here. So what's going on now? Remember the journey of an event. It is started from the log file and it's been sent to Logstash. And Logstash did the parsing things and then it's sent to Elasticsearch. Kibana is pulling the data from Elasticsearch. Now we have the data. So this is the underlying infrastructure with the on the log systems, either Splunk or QRadar or ArcSight. They have all similar systems, right? So is that clear how we set things up and how we get them ready? Now it's time for the do some analytics. So since we are here, we are going to do some tests. So collect some other logs, other types of logs. So file thing is getting actually the logs for us. Whenever I read add new log here, for example, let me open that log file. Where is that? Right here. I would like to copy the last line and paste it here by changing the IP address to what? Let's say 8.8.8.8, okay? And I would like to use some fancy user agent here and say meetup user agent. Okay, I will save this thing and let's look at to the Kibana. So that last time we get the 1912 and it's going to send in every 30 seconds. I think you can configure that. It's available in the configuration file, but it's going to be right here. As you can see, meetup user agent is just, remember somebody has just requested the resource. It is style to, and it's just creating an entry on the log file. So we have this thing, and let's do longitude, the IP address, and all those things. Perfect. We're good to go. And I would like to add more things to my Logstash, right? So remember, we can read the package files also. I would like to read the package beat too. That's also needs some, I also downloaded this thing and also I get the configuration file ready. Again, pretty straightforward. We're gonna get the idea very easily. So first of all, this is a networking. That's why we need an interface. Which interface we're gonna look at it. And also, what is the time frame we're gonna send the packages? Do you want to send it every second, which is not a good idea, or send it to some period, right? So for example, 30 seconds is a good time. And of course, where I should send it. So if I scroll all the way down, I see that it's going to be a Logstash. This time I'm adding some templates. because the package itself is not parsable by Logstash. Remember, this time I have to say that, hey, Mr. Logstash, I have a template for that to parse that. By the way, this template is available for the when you download the package beat. So the configuration seems a little bit complex, but if you know the network, how it works, you can parse that thing and also adjust some flags, but also available for a lot of protocols. You don't have to necessarily worry about understanding the configuration thing and also the parsing things. But for itself, it has enough resources to analyze HTTP, DNS, and other famous protocols. It is running exactly the similar way that we run for file beat thing. So this is how we can run that. Again, read the configuration file, run on a publish mode. So it's going to start with these protocols. And if I look at to my dashboard now, I will see some network packages in 30 seconds. By the way, let's generate some ping here.
I had a question. Is that beat generating a PCAP file?
No, it's not generating a PCAP file, but instead generating a flow package. It's similar to PCAP, but it's a little bit different. As you can see, we begin to see some network packages, which is actually localhost, and I see that ICMP packages from my localhost to 8.8.8. So you can also collect a lot of things from the network resources too. So why do we need to explain this? Network packages, remember, they are also pretty vital to make some decisions, or even if you would like to write it to a PCAP file and redirect the PCAP file, it has some add-ons to communicate the PCAP files with the Logstash and also do the parsing. So those are a little bit advanced topic. I'm not going to go there, and this session is not actually setting up the environment, but I would like to show you that if you would like to do threat hunting by yourself, by setting up some infrastructure, it's not that complicated. You can do it by yourself. That's why I would like to spend some time for the infrastructure. And now let's go to the threat hunting thing. Let's stop this, and let's stop this one, and let's stop my file thing too. And I will do some real case scenarios here. So first of all, I have a machine here, and I will do some attacks to this machine, and I will capture the logs on the other section. So this is my web server. By the way, I need to, okay, I will stop there. And let me have my callbacks ready too, because that's going to be the attacker. Let me move this thing to a little bit closer here. And this one. All right, so I have a Windows machine here, which has a file beat thing, and also it has also Windows log pack thing. You can run that, just clicking on the executable file. If you adjust the log, configuration file, that's pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. So, for example, this is winlog beat configuration file. I will send my package to Logstash, which is running on 1543. So that is one thing. But I'm not going to use the Windows event thing for now because I already did that. And also I already loaded the log files under these directories. So we're talking about 2 million logs. It's going to take a little bit time, approximately 5 to 10 minutes to load all those things on Elasticsearch and do the indexing. That's why I did it before the meetup. The most exciting part, you missed that. Anyways, but you have the chance to see the action. So in order to track an attack on a normal environment, we can run file beats directly. But remember, where is the file beat? Yeah, file beat itself is not doing any kind of a log filtering or parsing, right? Remember, so it's going to send it directly to my Logstash, and I would like to show you something while it's doing that. So let's send our logs to Logstash. And let's see in the log files, it is sending, and there is no problem with that. So it's been loaded. We don't see any error here, but I would like to switch back to here if I have any update. Okay. So this is real time. By the way, we're not getting anything, but I would like to do some requests to my website. So this is the website that's running on this machine, and I would like to make some requests to this website. So for example, let me click on search, and yeah, he changed. Oh no, okay. Contact, about, just like a normal user, right? So we're not doing anything fancy here. And this guy is reading the log file and sending it to my Logstash. And probably I should see a few new entries at the top of this thing. Will probably take 30 seconds to show up the latest log. And let me see here again. Okay. Okay.
So this is running under the Java, so
Uh-huh.
your application. So if it is having some sort of a stack trace or something which have multiple lines,
Yes.
so how it will
Parse.
the one.
So if you have a stack trace, multiple lines, it is okay because it's a message actually. It's not a lot of parts. And if it's an event log in Windows, I will show you in a minute. So that's easy to do it in with the win log beat. But if you are talking about other stack trace from, let's say, Apache, definitely you need a parser for that. And I don't memorize any parser in my mind, but there are a lot of people are sharing the parser for famous products. But I found, for example, IES, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So this one is actually sent me the log. As you can see, this is the latest log. And if you don't configure your filter properly, this is the end of the result. So let's look at it. Timestamp when the log is getting, when we get the log. This is the source of the log, and it says it's type of log, and this is the message, and I don't see anything like a response code, user agent, and all those things. See that? So this is the biggest mistake that people usually using it in a log system. They see that, okay, we're seeing the logs on the log management system. That's okay. Now, it's not okay. I see a lot of systems when I go to an incident response. This type of configuration is useless. We cannot use that. That's why I usually had to export all logs to a plain text and then do the analysis and then find what's wrong with that, because I need these parts and they're not readable now. So what we need to do is we need to add the configuration of reading the IES logs in order to parse them correctly. So that's why I will show you how we can do that on Logstash. By the way, I will share these Logstash configuration files if you need them. Okay. This is not. This is something else. Let's open the sixth one. Okay. So a little bit complex, but it's still easy to understand. So we have a filter that reads a message, and when it starts with a shot, it is going to drop the package. So we don't need that, because we know that when it's something starts with sharp, it is command. And this is IES log parser. I get it from some site, I don't remember now. And there is one thing right here. So there is a flag that is called zero parse failure. And if that is available, then it means that this parser couldn't parse the log file. Remember, our Logstash is going to collect from a lot of resources, right? Apache, from SQL, from IES, from, I don't know, you name it. So you have to have multiple parsers, but if you have removed this parser, it's not going to look at the other one. So here is the if conditions. Whenever this thing is available, it's going to try to parse with Apache thing. So first of all, it's going to try with IES. If it's not going to work, it's going to try with Apache, and you can add more. You got the idea, right? So that Apache thing, that's why it is required. And also, we will extract some of the timestamp from here, so in order to display them in a proper way, and also the user agent. So user agent parts, the browser, and also the GeoIP thing also is available here. Let me copy this thing and send it to my configuration file. And remember, we were running on auto renew, auto load, sorry. Okay, save it. Wait for the Logstash to come back. Okay, now we're good. So let me try to visit these links again. I click on one, about, contact, search, register, login, and all those good stuff. Okay, and then let's try to do something malicious. Use that. We have something here. Good. Let's go back to our Kibana. And what time is it now? 26. We should see in 30 seconds. By the way, I can take the question while we're waiting for the logs to show up. Any question up to now? Yep.
How does the file B deal with log rotation?
Sorry, say it again.
How does the file B deal with log rotation?
File?
File B?
File bit with log rotation?
Yeah.
No problem. Because when you configure the file bit with reading for multiple log files, it is going to look at to the log files if they are rotated. So for example, and where's that? Ah, okay, right. This one is actually, you know, IES have a horrible log mechanism. Whenever a log file is modified under these folders, it's going to be automatically popped up by the file bit. So there's not going to be any problem. When the file is renewed, let's say the same file, it's going to the back. File bit is smart enough that, hey, it was on the line, let's say 10,000, now it is 0 line. That means this log file is rotated. I need to start from the very beginning. So it has that memory. Okay, now if I go back to my thing, I see that my log file in this case is much understandable format. So you can see that the browser name is Firefox, it is Linux, the client IP address, and the message again, but this time we also parse the URL and also the query string and the response code. Let's get to 500. Remember the single code. It goes right here. And the other stuff. Okay, now this platform is useful for something. Okay, now I can use that. Okay, so go. In Logstash, Kibana, we will do some filtering here. Again, it has a query to do some filtering, and it has some layout to filter out. So first of all, let's start with the top, and those are really useful things. So the first thing, usually, if you are a SOC admin or let's say SOC analyst, you usually look for the dashboard and try to see that if something new comes up, or if you are a threat hunter, you look for all the things that's been exist on some certain amount of time. So for example, in my case, we're talking about 2 million logs approximately, and you see that majority of them show up at this level. So when I was logging, actually this system is not running from 2016, 2014 by the way. I just set up this a couple of days ago. But the log files, since the parser can parse the date time, Elasticsearch understand that, okay, this is actually the log belongs to 2014. That's why it is available right here. And also it is parsing the thing, and we are right here. But I would like to do some analysis in 2 million logs. And by the way, it includes multiple resources. That's the actual beauty of log aggregation tools or maybe the log management tools. If I need to look at something that is also exists on event logs, on log files, on Apache logs, and all those things, I have to have them all together in order to make some decision, right? So for example, if I want to look for, let's say, kind of an attack, let's say web attacks, what should I do? I can search for some keywords. By the way, this is a regular expression friendly search bar. Unlike Wireshark filters, you can use the regular expression here. So for example here, what is the response code name? By the way, you need to find the right name of your type. For example, this one is response. If it is response, you have to use the response in the filter bar. So for example, if you have a parser that says status instead of response, maybe response code, you have to use that in your filtering thing. So this time I will say that response column, let's say 500. So that's actually going to show me the request that's ended with 500. So let's load this, and I see that a lot of logs here. Of course, looking at them one by one is a big pain, but you can do something trivial here. For example, I can say that, hey, who is the sender of this particular log. For example, the host, client host. Where is that? Okay, yeah, right here. So when you click on the on this one, it is going to add the filter here. So as you can see, that's actually 1,000. If I clear this filter, we're talking about 130,000. So this is one client sent me a 1,000 request. It seems interesting, but I need to know how many clients are sending to me. So I need to do some kind of a mass analysis on these things. And maybe I can do some filtering at here and client at this or this or this, but it has a better option. That's what I would like to show you guys. So first of all, let's create a new one. And from the starting point, when you open the visualize, you will see nothing here, only the create visualization. It says add here. And my favorite is vertical bar. You can filter down your log to some extent. And I will use the, by the way, you can have multiple index for different purposes. So for example, if you distribute your corporate environment, accounting, or maybe other different departments to different index, you can use them, but I will use them all now. So this is a basic chart that says all things are in total is 1.9 million logs. So obviously it's not telling me anything, but I am looking for a specific thing, right? First of all, give me the items that has response codes, let's say not 200, right? That's actually better filtered. Instead of using 500, I will say that, hey, 200 is fine. I will probably not be complaining about that, but I would like to look for the non-200 request. So we're talking about the approximately 300,000 logs. So let's analyze them a little bit. So I will add some x-axis here, and what I'm going to do is I will look for some terms to group these things. So instead of a big chunk, I would like to look at them by the client host. Remember that keyword was the IP address of the clients when we are doing the parsing. So when I choose that, I will use the metric as a count, and it's going to group this 200,000 something into multiple IP address. Now I am looking at some usual suspects like 172 or these guys or the IP addresses. So those are potential attackers for me, but I need a little bit more information. They have non-200, but I don't know if it's a 500 or it's 400 something or whatever. So Kibana can do a little bit more analysis on that for you. So if you click on add sub buckets, so these are actually the buckets that you're looking at, and I would like to do some, cut them into smaller buckets in order to see that what's exactly look like for these guys. So if I click on add a little bit more buckets, I would like to split series, and actually you can split the chart into two things. For example, if you are going to look at let's say get and post, we will split it to two. But if you are talking about 500, 300, 404, a lot of things, right? Splitting them into 8 graphic is not a good idea usually. It's a good idea to split the bar itself. So that's why I will split the series. And what do you want me to split on top of what? I would like to split for some term, and it is going to be the response. Remember that was my keyword in the parser. Okay, so that's why you have to know your name of the field while doing this analysis. So if I click on play again, now I'm looking at something different. So that's 500 are the green ones, and these are the 543. But this thing doesn't make any sense to me because I usually look for the color-coded things. That's why you can modify this. For example, I want 500 to be dark red, okay, and 304, 302. Usually it's harmless. I can accept that as accept 300 family as green thing, right? So maybe this green. Yeah, and also 500, 503 is also another red flag for me. And 400 family, they are, let's say they are orange. 404, a lot of 404, maybe again, a little bit interesting. And also 403 is going to be, let's say, again, orange. Okay, I think we did the color coding. Now I have a better picture. Now This guy seems a little bit aggressive, and there are a lot of 500 here. These guys seems interesting. They have also 500 and also some 404, and yeah, interesting. And I would like to do some more analysis and where you can use the splitting the chart, right? So these are obviously my usual suspect. I can copy the IP address, do the more analysis in the thread, the raw files. We will do that. But before that, I would like to get a little bit more idea by using this infrastructure. So again, I would like to add another sub thing, but this time the only available option is splitting the chart. This time I would like to split it to some term, and that term is going to be the request. What was that? Request method? Method? Yeah, method. So I would like to split it post, put, get. We're talking about at least 4 or 5 maybe at most. And I would like to play now. Okay, now it is split it. This is post terms, post methods, and these are get methods. And as you can see, these attackers are different than this one, right? So this guy is actually doing a get attack to some URL, but these guys are post. Why I would like to distinguish post attackers from get attackers? That's actually the close explanation. On post method, there is a post body, remember. Post body doesn't exist in web application log files. That's the problem. So these guys are trying to do some SQL injection to your server probably, but you don't know which field they are using. It is post. Maybe they are using the email, maybe they are using the password box. You don't know. But this is on URL. So you will see that this guy, clear picture, but this guy is going to be a little bit obfuscated for us. And we will investigate that. And let's copy this thing. Let's copy this IP address. And let's go back to the section. The dashboard, and then I would like to use the client host. It's going to be this one, and let's see how many requests he sent to our server. And as you can see, this is the majority of the logs that I've seen. And you can, by the way, by selecting that, you can zoom in that section, or even you can zoom into the particular section. Or even you can choose one of the log here and look at that. What is he doing? What is he, trying to get from my server? So obviously, if this is a get attack, I need to see something on my URL, right? So this is what's parsed as page. Okay. So I would like to see the page, but this representation is not helpful, right? I need to see that page as a column here, so it can give me a better idea. So what you need to do is actually find the page here and say add. It is going to add as a column. Oh, I click on ports. So this is how we can remove it from if you added by mistake. So on page, click on add. Okay. So this is regex test. So it doesn't seem a little bit interesting URL to me. But what I would like to do is I will exclude something, right? Because default ASPX doesn't make any sense to me. At least for get request, there's nothing to do with that. That's why I would like to say not default ASPX.
Can you also parse it through the query itself?
Sorry?
Without selecting it?
You mean from here? Oh yeah, yes, definitely. So for example, you can do that page, and this one actually can add filter for that. You can choose the regular expression as that, and you can actually toggle that by choosing not. So it's going to be.
Could you do it without actually selecting it? If you wanted to
No,
add it to
no. Unfortunately, it's not doing. You have to click on that. Since this is a web page, that thing is not available for this. Yeah, in Splunk you can. Yeah. I know, but you are paying a lot of money to Splunk. So obviously we're seeing something here, right? So CMDX is a red flag for us, and I see that product ASPX is one of his favorite, and I can actually filter out the, by looking at the URLs that he is requesting, and we will do that after the, break. what we would like to do is, so this guy is requesting a lot of pages, and I would like to see which page is requested most and what he is trying to do, and I would like to understand and filter out in a way that we can easily consume that. But even if we don't have the pizza ready yet, I would like to give a break because I'm going to die now.